Looking out across the vast water from the bridge near Bob's Resort, located in central South Dakota, one would never know that this land was once home to the local Cheyenne River Sioux. These bottomlands were known as the Old Cheyenne Agency. It once housed 435 Native Americans, a local tribal government, hospital, school, church, and many homes. It was the last land taken from these people by the United States government. The United States has used its powers to seize large parcels of land for flood control and reclamation projects. Since World War II, the constructions of federally administered dam projects on the nation's rivers have adversely affected American Indian reservations and communities. The Native Americans who moved around the area near the Missouri River relied on the river as one of their main sources of water. They used it to cook, clean, and bathe in. In the late 1800s to the early 1900s, after the arrival of white settlers, the Native Americans still living along the banks of the Missouri River relied on nature for their needs. They hunted deer, fished for walleye, trapped many small animals, and used herbs for medications. They were forced to leave their homelands and move to the new location of Eagle Butte, South Dakota. All their livestock was bought and killed. Their land was to be flooded. Tribal members living in the river bottoms were dependent on the resources found there, including water, timber used for shade, firewood and construction, wild game and plants, rich soil for cultivation, grazing land for livestock, and protection from the harsh winds of the prairie winters. The areas they were moved to were less desirable and had little, if any, of the traditional necessities. In addition, some were physically forced to move or abandon their homes, halls, churches, and the graves of ancestors. In an interview with Casimir LeBeau, a tribal member who lived in the river bottoms of the Missouri near the Old Agency in 1940, told of how his family lost all of their cattle. He worked with cattle until his relocation. Another tribal member, Joel Lenzishorst, states that he had to leave his homelands and move to a location in which he knew nothing about prior to the relocation. They had to learn how to live on the new land, and they had to find new ways to prosper. The Homestead Act of 1862 was created by the U.S. government so white people would have a place to prosper and grow in the Midwest. The Homestead Act enabled many white settlers to move onto Indian territory along the Missouri River. In 1876, a series of wars with the Native Americans of Plains led to the Fort Laramie Treaty, which forced Native Americans onto the reservations, decreasing the amount of land belonging to them. After the discovery of gold in the Black Hills of South Dakota, and Custer getting killed at the Battle of Little Bighorn, again, the amount of land was decreased considerably to keep the Indians confined to reservations. The Dawes Act of 1887 divided the reservations into individual allotments for tribal members. The Native Americans were forced to live on these allotments. Many were located along the banks of the Missouri River. In 1943, flooding of the Missouri caused the settlers to cry out for assistance. They went to the federal government and demanded a way to fix the flooding along the banks of the river. The government called upon the Corps of Engineers to do a report on the river. The Corps of Engineers sent Colonel Lewis A. Pick, who was a Missouri River Basin Division engineer, to the Missouri River to survey. He came back with a report referred to as the Pick Plan, which called for the Corps of Engineers to build 1,500 miles of levees from Sioux City, Iowa, to the Mississippi, 18 tributary dams, and 5 huge multiple-purpose dams. In 1944, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the Bureau of Reclamation created the Pick-Sloan Plan for multi-purpose water development in the Missouri River Basin. They concluded that building dams, levees, and tributaries would help bring farmers better irrigation systems. December 22, 1944, Congress authorized the Missouri River Basin Development Program, also known as the Pig-Sloan Plan, as part of the Flood Control Act of 1944. This plan was to provide, among other things, flood control, hydroelectric power, irrigation, and recreation opportunities for the people of the region. Dams were approved and funded by Congress, but in many cases, tribal officials were not informed or consulted about these plans. In the late 1940s, the relocation process began. The government began to buy the Native Americans' land. The government would sometimes only pay $1 per acre. Native Americans in that area then had to pick up everything they had and move. In August of 1948, the Corps began construction of the Owyhee Dam just north of Pierce, South Dakota. This project would produce the largest reservoir and the greatest hydroelectric power capacity of any of the Pig-Sloan dams. It also destroyed more American Indian lands and resources than any other public works projects in America. It flooded 160,889 acres on the Standing Rock and Cheyenne River reservations and dislocated at least 350 Sioux families. The tribal lands were often flooded before federal compensation was determined or distributed, and oftentimes were illegally condemned in order to get the land. Congress never gave approval to the Corps to remove the Indian people, therefore forcing them to redress directly from Congress. This was done on a reservation-by-reservation basis. September 30th, 1950, it was established by Congress that the Corps and the BIA were to start negotiating settlements with tribal representatives for the damages caused by the Pig-Sloan Dam projects. If an agreement between the two of them could not be reached, then Congress would decide the final settlements. On September 3, 1954, the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe was provided with a settlement of $10.6 million for damages caused by the Owyhee Dam. This amount is $13 million less than the estimated amount by the tribe for just compensation. The Owyhee Dam was finished in 1961, and little was heard from the Native Americans until the early 1990s. In 1991, the General Accounting Office sent a report to Congress in regard to the JTAC claim that the tribes may not have been willing sellers of land at the amount of compensation authorized by Congress. The amount they were originally given covered the cost of relocation only. The GAO advised them on how to figure the compensation. A $209.7 million trust fund was established November 13, 2000 for the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe for damages caused by the Owyhee Dam project. This is by far the largest settlement awarded to a tribe impacted by the Pig-Sloan project. The lives of the Native Americans who lived along the Missouri River were changed forever. They had to adapt to a different way of life. Mr. Michael Lawson, the author of Damned Indians, is quoted, "The Sioux tribes would gladly trade any and all of the benefits and compensation they received in return for the old meandering Missouri and its rich bottom lands." Native Americans have since relied on the government to provide them with their necessities. They were not self-sufficient any longer. The Native American way of life died out in a way, and many stopped speaking the Lakota language. Tribal Chairman J.W. Thompson of the Lower Brule Sioux tribe said it best at a field hearing of the Senate Committee on the Public Works in Pierce, South Dakota on February 16, 1959. "It is the wish of our people that no more land be taken from us. When our land is gone, our way of life is gone, our tribes destroyed. The bottomlands the Corps of Engineers want to take are the heartlands. They can never be replaced. No similar lands are for sale. To take our lands is to take our homes and income, and a part of our history and heritage."